Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News, and here are some of the top stories we've been following. A verdict was made today in connection with the trial of an Alberta pediatrician who was charged with sexually assaulting a minor. A historic $1 billion deal is signed involving the Keystone XL pipeline, which will create thousands of jobs for Canadians. And a new version of Monopoly will be available this Christmas, but this one has a Lethbridge twist.
Your nation. Your province. Your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Justice Von Hartigan found St. Albert pediatrician Dr. Ramnik Mohinder Kumar not guilty of sexually assaulting a minor. Dr. Kumar was on trial for sexual assault and sexual interference. He was accused of touching a girl who was 9 years old at the time in 2015. Naveen Day is at the Lethbridge Courthouse and has the latest.
During the trial, the court heard from the complainant, who is now 14 years old. She testified that while on a joint family vacation to Waterton Lakes National Park, Dr. Kumar repeatedly approached her from behind, began massaging her, touching her hair, back, and chest. And when he escorted the children to go swimming, he insisted that he help her get changed, despite her being more than capable of changing herself. Both Dr. Kumar and his wife denied these allegations and said that the most that he ever did to the girl was playfully touch her ears. The judge said in his closing statement, quote, "I am ultimately left with sufficient reasonable doubt that I cannot determine with a required degree of certainty what really happened on that weekend in 2015. We have yet to hear reaction from the complainant's family."
That was video journalist Naveen Day. Today marks the one-year anniversary of the disappearance of Marshall Iwasa. Lethbridge Police continue to investigate his disappearance, and the file is remaining open with a dedicated investigator until he is found. Iwasa was last seen at his mother's house on November 17th of last year. His last known whereabouts was at a Northside storage unit on November 18th. He told his family he was returning to Calgary from Lethbridge, but has not been seen or heard from since. On November 23rd of last year, his burned-out vehicle was located in the BC backcountry by Pemberton, BC RCMP. His sister Paige Fogan had this to say in a statement earlier today. "On this one-year mark, I look back to reflect over what we have learned. When I think of the year, I am filled with such gratitude over the enormous support our family has received. I would like to take time today to extend my gratitude for the continual support and coverage of my brother's disappearance. We won't stop until we have answers." Marshall Iwasa, who was 26 at the time he went missing, has been listed with the National Center for Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains. Lethbridge fire investigators completed their investigation into a house fire on Monday morning on Blackfoot Road West in Lethbridge. The investigation revealed that the fire was accidental. Fire officials remind residents to safely dispose of cigarettes in a non-combustible container filled with sand or water. 22 firefighters responded to the blaze, which caused more than $400,000 damage to the home. Fortunately, no one was injured in the blaze, and a GoFundMe account has been set up to help provide for the family who lost everything in the fire. Each year around this time, Métis across Canada commemorate the history and culture of their people. They also celebrate the legacy of Louis Riel. Ainsley O'Reilly caught up with some local Métis who explain how much this time of year really means to them.
Tuesday marks the 150th anniversary of the Métis Nations Confederation. On November 17th each year, Manitoba's founder and fearless leader of the Métis people, Louis Riel, is honored. In Lethbridge, 1/3 of Indigenous people are Métis.
For us, the significance of this day and being able to have this recognized at City Hall is a major step in reconciliation.
Along with asking the community to acknowledge the culture and traditions of our Métis people, representatives of Métis Local spoke about the importance of acknowledgement within all levels of government.
We're so fortunate that we have Mayor Spearman, and the mayors in the past have been so wonderful for us. Mayor Dodick and Bob Tarlick, and they've all been wonderful in working with the Métis. So it's great that we've been able to build this relationship.
We are not a treaty people because we were never part of that process. And I know that the Métis National Council and our government with the Métis Nation of Alberta are actively working with the federal government to carry out what that looks like.
When asked what being Métis means to them, local representatives had this to say.
We have a unique history, we have a unique ancestry, we have a unique geography, and we have a unique language.
Just means everything to me that I am a Métis, and I'm a Métis through and through.
For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
Christmas can be a sad time for many of our seniors in Lethbridge, but an initiative is aiming to help those seniors who are feeling alone. As Micah Quinn explains, this campaign will help out over 1,500 retirees during the COVID-19 Christmas season.
Christmas to Remember and Stocking Stuffers for Seniors are two joint holiday donation drives set up by Aged Care Columbia and London Drugs.
And what we do is we're able to bring, we collect gift kit tags for seniors in need throughout Lethbridge, and then we bring them to London Drugs, and then people are able to pick the name tags and then bring the gifts back to London Drugs.
The main goal of the drive is to show seniors that they are cared for, and you can still register a senior and bring back the gifts by December 16th to London Drugs.
And out of all years being COVID, I think one of the groups of individuals that have been impacted the most has been seniors. There's so many of us that are trying to protect our grandmas or parents from visiting, so having someone think of them by giving them a present under the tree this year is going to make a big difference.
Kovacs says that last year's initiative was a great success.
We had so many seniors that were so happy and thankful for it. They were so delighted in a sense that there were so many people thinking of them and wanting them to have a great Christmas, and that people had thought about them, like specifically what they want.
You can use the hashtags Care This Christmas and Stocking Stuffers for Seniors on social media to get others involved and to help out seniors who are living in isolation. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
This is the time of year when many Canadians participate in the Operation Christmas Child campaign. Frank King, who's with Samaritan's Purse, says many of the gifts stuffed into the shoeboxes are the first gifts ever received by kids in need. He says the reaction they receive from those children is priceless.
The kids just go nuts. They are so excited. They're looking at each other's boxes. They're showing things. Sometimes they're trading things, which we're fine with. So that it's just amazing to see that range of sort of reactions. And the one thing the kids love to see too is, and we ask Canadians to do this when they're packing their shoe boxes, and that is put a note and a photo inside each shoebox they pack, because the kids love to see, who are these people from this country I may have never even heard of who have packed this shoebox for me with all these cool things.
Mr. King will have details on what so many children are needing this Christmas season coming up in the second half of our show. Many of us grew up on the classic board game Monopoly. Well, there's a company called Outset Media which has added a Lethbridge twist to the game, and just in time for the Christmas season. The group is calling its game Lethbridgeopoly in honor of our city. Now, there's some familiar squares in the game featuring the likes of Henderson Lake Park, Park Place Mall, and New West Theatre. Jean-Paul Teskey, the Senior VP of Outset Media, says the company's partner, Late for the Sky, has the legal rights to use the name and image of Monopoly.
Late for the Sky has rights from the inventors of Monopoly, Parker Brothers, which predate Hasbro's purchase of Monopoly from predates Parker Brothers. They purchased the whole company, Parker Brothers, in the very early 1990s. But we even feature businesses, local businesses, like we have the Cooley Brew Company that is featured in the game. So I think that just makes it even a little bit more fun and unique for people that play it. But having some, meaningful FaceTime with family, playing a game that everyone can understand right off the bat and appreciate is much needed in these times.
Teskey says the main goal of the game is to celebrate communities across Canada, and you can pick up a copy at Walmart for only $30. Lethbridge City Council is preparing for its upcoming budget deliberations November 23rd, and one of the major targets is a 0% increase on property taxes. Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman, who made the motion, also brought forth a motion for no increase in water, wastewater, and garbage collection fees for 2021. Council unanimously supported the 0% target. Council is also looking at reductions in various departments of up to 10% to allow the city to reach almost $7 million in annual savings. Alberta Health Services released its new report on COVID-19, which says there were 860 new confirmed cases, bringing the total number of active cases in Alberta to just over 10,000. Fortunately, close to 30,000 Albertans have also recovered from the virus. The city of Lethbridge has 41 new cases, followed by Taber with 19, Medicine Hat with 17, Lethbridge County with 12, and Cardston County with 11. AHS says in the past few days, 29 Albertans have died as a result of COVID-19. That includes 1 death each in Lethbridge, Brooks, and the county of 40 Mile. A warning has been sent out to Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi and Calgary's Emergency Management Chief Todd Sampson from the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms. The group wants Calgary officials to back down from a threat to impose a 28-day circuit breaker lockdown on the city of Calgary. That lockdown would completely shut down all non-essential services in the city for almost a month. In a November 14th tweet, Sampson described rising infections in Calgary as an incoming tsunami. AHS says the Calgary zone has 4,208 active cases, which is the most in the province. The Justice Centre says it rejects destructive restrictions that lack a justifiable basis. The nonprofit group says the threat made by Calgary's emergency management chief is not grounded on relevant facts and fails to consider AHS data on actual COVID-19 related deaths, hospitalizations, and ICU capacity. BC's Provincial Health Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, says she will not be making masks mandatory in her province. She says masks are already required on transit, ferries, businesses, and community centres which protect British Columbians.
There is an order that requires businesses to have COVID safety plans, and a retail location, for example, should have plans that include mask wearing. And that means making them available to people, making it clear that people need to wear a mask when they're in those settings, making sure that staff know when they need to wear masks in their setting as well. And those are enforceable, as I talked about today, in the same way that every other part of what we do in business. And if we look at Quebec, for example, that is their model as well, and that the onus is on businesses to make sure that masks are available and that people understand the rules within their business.
Henry says a mandatory mask policy would unfairly target the homeless and racialized communities. BC had almost 23,000 COVID-19 cases, along with around 300 deaths attributed to the virus. Health officials in Ontario, meanwhile, are confirming another 1,249 new cases of COVID-19. This is the 12th straight day in which that province has reported case counts in the quadruple digits. There are also 12 new deaths attributed to the virus. The province is also reporting 133 new COVID-19 cases at schools, including at least 73 among students. In total, Ontario has processed more than 5.7 million tests with a positive rate of 4.7%. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he will increase testing in the province's long-term care homes amid a rise in cases at the facilities. Ford says increased testing must be combined with quick turnaround times for results.
We need mandatory 100% testing. The patients, everyone knows the patients aren't bringing this in. And God bless the staff, they're all heroes. And no one, the staff or visitors, no one would ever walk in to long-term care knowing they aren't well, right? Or they're showing symptoms. But we need 100% testing across the board to literally lock the long-term care down, knowing to eliminate. It's not going to be, guaranteed 100%. It's never going there. But I'll tell you, we need to do it.
A new poll by Leger in the Association of Canadian Studies says if Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine is ready, 56% of Canadians would take it next spring. Now, the same poll said 37% would take it when it's available. Meanwhile, 33% say they will wait for another vaccine to be available. 12% of Canadians say they will not take any vaccine whatsoever, and 18% are undecided. Even after a vaccine becomes available, the poll says 63% of Canadians think the COVID-19 safety measures will remain. Now, that's an increase by 18% from August. A historic agreement was reached earlier today between TC Energy and a group representing 5 First Nations called Natural Law Energy. The deal would see a future equity investment of up to $1 billion in the Keystone XL pipeline. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney said in a release, this serves as a model of how to build strong and trusted partnerships between industry and Indigenous groups for a safe, secure, and prosperous energy future. Kenney says the project will support an estimated 17,000 jobs in Canada and another 42,000 in the U.S. It will also contribute $2.4 billion to Canada's GDP. Projected U.S. President-elect Joe Biden has not been in favor of the Keystone XL pipeline. Joe Biden has been putting together his transition team to take over the White House in January. Now, there's one problem, however, and that current U.S. President Donald Trump has not conceded the election. U.S. political reporter Lisa Daft-Hari says the Trump team, which is claiming voter fraud, since they now have substantial evidence.
There is a very optimistic, for lack of a better word, legal team that is going to work for the president right now. I would just say ignore what you're seeing from the mainstream media here in the United States, because I think they're very quick to dismiss a lot of what has been done. But the bulk of the evidence has not been shown yet. And again, I want to remind viewers that a lot of these lawyers are extremely brave, extremely courageous, because their lives have been threatened.
Catch the full interview with the always engaging Lisa Daftari coming up in the second half of our show. Hurricane Iota has roared onto Nicaragua's Caribbean coast as a dangerous Category 4 storm. Iota's packing winds of 155 miles an hour or 250 kilometers an hour. It hit land at almost exactly the same area that Hurricane Eta devastated 13 days earlier. Christians in India are facing increased persecution as a result of the country's strict anti-conversion laws. According to Open Doors, many pastors and their church members are being tortured, arrested, and their homes being destroyed if they convert from Hinduism to Christianity. As we hear in this next report, in response, Open Doors is providing much-needed help to the areas hardest hit.
Being arrested is becoming a regular occurrence for pastors in India on the back of growing religious nationalism, warns Open Doors. The charity says that more and more pastors in the country face arrest and detention on charges of breaking anti-conversion laws. Open Doors International's Jan Vermeer, whose face can't be shown for security reasons, explains more.
You may be beaten, your house may be destroyed, your church may be attacked, people may get raped or kidnapped even, sometimes even killed. When there's a mob violence, very often the police comes in to take the victim into custody, so to protect the victim they will take him along or her along. But they also may have a Hindu agenda, so in fact they're not protecting the victim, they actually accuse him of converting people forcefully to the Christian religion, and they may torture you, they may put you in jail, they may charge you with a local anti-conversion law, so many things can happen to you.
Vermeer says they're providing vital practical support to these marginalised believers.
Well, we work through local partners, local church partners, and we do that by giving life-saving urgent aid and relief, especially relevant right now due to all the lockdowns that are happening everywhere, and the Christians are ignored in the food aid distribution.
He concluded by highlighting how they're calling on the Indian government to allow Christians to freely live out their faith without fear of reprisals.
We advocate amongst Western governments, other governments, for example the UK government, to appeal to the Indian government, that hopefully they will make changes.
Peter Whitting for the Global News Alliance.
It just goes to show that we have to continue to pray for persecuted Christians around the world. It was another beautiful day in southwestern Alberta. The snow has been melting, lots of warmth, and that trend will continue for most of the week. Complete weather details are on deck. It appears as though we're seeing a bit of a Chinook once again, which is bringing some of the wind and warmer temperatures, and that warmer weather, which is a little more seasonal, will be sticking around for a little while. Jeanette Rocher is here now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, my back can finally recover from shoveling all of that snow.
Yeah, definitely save your back. Hell, maybe the rest of the snow will be taken out by those Chinook winds that you were talking about. Not a bad week in store for us at all, though. Lots of sunshine into tonight. We could see those wind gusts of up to 60 kilometers per hour happening after midnight. Overnight low tonight at 3 degrees. Into tomorrow, lots of sunshine, high of 7 degrees. We could actually even see a UV index tomorrow of 1, which is low, but you know what? It's November, and I will certainly take a UV index in November. Into Thursday, lots of sunshine, high of 0. 5 degrees is our high for Friday. A lovely day on Saturday with a high of 7 degrees under sunny skies. And 7s all the rest of across the board there for Sunday and Monday with partly cloudy skies. So I'm loving those temperatures. They're well above average for this time of year, which is 4. Average low is -8. 18 was our high temperature on this day back in 1939, and our chilliest day on record was -31 in 1955. Sun rose this morning at 7:47 a.m. and we had 9 hours of sunlight today with a sunset at 4:46 p.m. So looking over to the West Coast, lots of rain happening in both Vancouver and Victoria tomorrow. 10 to 15 millimeters of rain expected in Vancouver. Heavy showers in Victoria as well. Could see a 30% chance of flurries in Edmonton tomorrow with a high of -2. 4 degrees in Calgary, not a bad day. Sunshine in the morning, and we'll see those increasing clouds throughout the day. In Saskatoon, 1 degree, partly cloudy skies. 5 expected in Regina. Could feel chillier with the wind chill as well, though. 6 degrees expected to be the high in Winnipeg. And Winnipeg could see some wind gusts up to 60 kilometers per hour tomorrow as well. Now, Ottawa is going to experience some high wind and chill. Could feel more like -17 instead of that -5 there. Overcast in Toronto tomorrow with a high of 3 degrees, -4 in Montreal with lots of sunshine. And as we get further into the East Coast here, -2, the expected high for Fredericton with a mix of sun and cloud. Halifax could see a 30% chance of flurries, 60% chance in Charlottetown with a high of -1 there, 1 degree in Halifax, and 5 in St. John's, Newfoundland with a mix of sun and cloud. Could see lots of wind there as well. So there you go. That is your forecast.
TC Energy says it has signed a deal with a group representing 5 First Nations to invest up to $1 billion in the Keystone XL pipeline project. The investment is contingent on Natural Law Energy securing financing. The Alberta government says the project will create around 17,000 jobs in Canada and add $2.4 billion to Canada's gross domestic product. TC Energy approved construction of the Keystone XL pipeline after getting financial backing from Alberta, but projected U.S. President-elect Joe Biden says he would cancel its presidential permit. George Weston says his company's profit jumped to $303 million in its latest quarter. That is 4 times higher than a year ago. The company that operates Loblaw says it earned an adjusted profit of $362 million. Now that's actually down from $391 million in the same quarter last year. Revenue for the quarter ending October 3rd was up 6.5% to $16.21 billion. George Weston says its quarterly dividend will be increased from 52.5 to 55 cents per share. Walmart turned out another stellar quarter as the world's largest retailer powers through the COVID-19 pandemic while other companies struggle. The company delivered a 56% increase in its fiscal third quarter profits while revenue rose 5.3%. Online sales, meanwhile, spiked by nearly 80%. The results offer the latest evidence that Walmart's efforts to expand online grocery services are widening the gap between itself and its rivals. The annual pace of housing starts was up 3% last month over September. Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says the seasonally adjusted annual rate rose to almost 215,000 units in October. Economists were expecting a rate of around 222,000. Economists say home building seems to be normalizing in most areas of Canada following a sizzling summer. Many say rising demand for single detached homes and low interest rates will keep the housing market resilient. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, a judge found St. Albert pediatrician Dr. Ramneek Mohinder Kumar not guilty of sexual assault and sexual interference of a minor. He was accused of touching a 9-year-old girl in 2015 on 3 separate occasions during a joint family vacation at Waterton Lakes National Park. The boxes are being stuffed for Operation Christmas Child. Coming up, Jeanette Roche interviews Frank King with Samaritan's Purse about what the biggest needs are for children in some of the world's most impoverished countries. That Q&A is on deck. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. Shop of Wonders is looking for volunteers beginning in December to help bring some Christmas cheer to families who need a special something this year. This is a My City Care initiative through My Victory Church in Lethbridge, which helps to give people hope and a hand up. Volunteers will wrap gifts, entertain kids, and assist with other tasks. To learn more about this opportunity, call Carol at 403-942-1378 or email carol@myvictory.ca. Experience the magic at the Winterlight Festival at Nikayuko Japanese Garden beginning December 3rd from 7 to 9:30 p.m. Bundle up and enjoy the massive light display, ice sculptures, and other surprises throughout the garden. COVID-19 restrictions will be observed with one-way pathways along with other safety measures. Tickets must be purchased in advance. Visit nikayuko.com or call 403-328-3511 to purchase yours today. The Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization is looking for volunteers to take part in their Drive Happiness program. This program is to help seniors in our community who are facing extreme loneliness due to lack of accessible transportation. Volunteers will drive clients to their medical appointments, pick up groceries, and take them to important life activities. If you'd like to help seniors in your community and for more information, call 403-332-4320 or email volunteer@volunteerlethbridge.com. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Most of you already know about Operation Christmas Child, also known as the Shoebox Campaign, which is a project of the international relief organization Samaritan's Purse. It's become the world's largest children's Christmas project. Joining me to talk about this via Skype from Calgary is Frank King, the News Media Relations Manager with Samaritan's Purse. Frank, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me on board. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for any viewers who may be unfamiliar with it, what is Operation Christmas Child all about?
Operation Christmas Child involves generous Canadians packing shoeboxes full of school supplies, toys, and hygiene items, and then dropping off these shoeboxes at locations across Canada. Then all those thousands and thousands of shoeboxes are shipped to our processing center in Calgary, where every single one is inspected by volunteers to make sure there's nothing there that could scare or harm children or stop the boxes from getting through customs. From then, they are shipped out of Canada and down to countries in Central America and French-speaking West Africa, where our volunteers in those countries get them through customs and work with churches in those countries to distribute those boxes to children in need.
That's amazing. Now, how many kids in how many different countries have you reached?
Well, in terms of Canada, we've got approximately half a dozen countries that they're going to this year.
What are some of the different countries? I know you mentioned Central America and the French African countries, right?
Yes. So, for example, in Central America, they're going to children in Costa Rica, El Salvador, Nicaragua. In West Africa, they're going to Senegal, Ivory Coast, and one or two other countries. And the really special thing about this is, in many cases, these gift-filled shoeboxes are the first gift these children will have ever received in their lives.
That's incredible. Now, what are the ages of some of these kids receiving the gifts?
Well, when we explain to Canadians how this works, we ask them to pack shoeboxes, first of all, to pick their gender. Second of all, to pick one of three age ranges. That's 2 to 4, 5 to 9, or 10 to 14. And then, of course, on the Samaritan's Purse website, we have all kinds of suggestions about here's what works really well for each of these age groups, and here's also what not to put in your shoeboxes.
Right. Maybe we want to talk a little bit about that. What are some great items that we can pack for these kids? What are some of those wow items that really get their attention?
One really cool item, we love it when folks put in, is a soccer ball. So they deflate the ball, put it in the box, get one of those little pumps, because you can get them pretty small now, and the little needle, put that in the box as well. Then when the kids open it up, they can blow up the soccer ball right there on the spot and go out and play. So that's a fantastic wow item that we love it when kids put in their shoebox.
And then on the flip side, are there any items that you should not be packing for kids?
That's a great question. One of the things we ask people not to put in is no food items, no toothpaste, because any of those can stop the boxes from getting through customs. We also ask people not to put in anything that they think could scare or harm a child. This even goes to something like little water pistols. We ask folks not to put them in, for example, because in many cases, these children and their families have been through traumatic war, civil war, violence, family violence even. And so for those cases, opening their boxes and finding a little toy gun in there can be traumatic for the children. So that's one example of things we ask folks not to put in. We also ask folks not to put in playing cards. And the reason for that is lots of families have been through a lot of difficulties with gambling addiction. And so for those playing cards in there, that can open the door to something that, the parent might see the playing cards and start to play, and first thing you know is if they've been battling some addiction problems, that could open the door to it all over again. So that's another little example. And of course, folks can get all the information about what to put in and what not to put in at samaritanspurse.ca.
Very interesting. Now, how do the kids and the families react to these gifts? Can you maybe share a story on what kind of impact this makes?
Yeah, it's really funny because some kids are very reserved. They'll open up their box, they'll look at it, then they'll close the box again, and they won't open it till they take it home to show it to their siblings and their parents. In other cases, the kids just go nuts. They are so excited. They're looking at each other's boxes, they're showing things. Sometimes they're trading things, which we're fine with. So that it's just amazing to see that range of sort of reactions. And the one thing the kids love to see too is, and we ask Canadians to do this when they're packing their shoe boxes, and that is put a note and a photo inside each shoe box they pack, because the kids love to see, who are these people from this country I may have never even heard of, who have packed this shoebox for me with all these cool things. So to have a picture or a note in there is really a cool thing to add in your box.
That's a great idea, actually. Now, does the shoebox also have an impact on the surrounding community?
Yes, it does. Let me give you an example of how the shoe boxes can make such a big difference. One of the things we ask folks to put in is school supplies, the paper, pencils, erasers, that kind of thing. And the reason we ask for that is even in countries where the education system is free, oftentimes the children have to provide their own supplies. For some families, that alone means their children will not be able to go to school. So by putting pencils and paper and erasers and that kind of stuff, rulers in the shoe boxes, that actually opens the door for children to go and join their friends at school and get an education. So that's a really key thing, how that can change whole communities when children suddenly get all these school supplies in their shoe boxes and start to get an education.
That's a fantastic idea, absolutely. Now, COVID has obviously affected everybody, everywhere. So how has COVID affected the way that you're doing the Christmas Shoebox campaign?
Well, definitely, we've been in communication with our church partners across Canada because churches generally serve as drop-off locations for folks who want, who pack their shoeboxes. So we've been in communication with them with all kinds of suggestions as to, how to do contactless, make empty shoe boxes available for folks in a contactless way, and also how to drop off shoe boxes in a contactless way to ensure people are safe. In fact, we set up a whole COVID-19 information page on the Samaritan's Purse website that lists all kinds of suggestions and ways for folks to do this thing as safely as possible. And of course, we also have an alternate, and that is if folks are kind of unsure about it, they can also go to packabox.ca and pack their shoe boxes online.
That's cool. So can you explain how it works to pack a box online through, what was it, packabox.ca is what you said?
You got it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So here's how we do it. We set it up as much as possible so that it echoes the traditional physical shoebox packing experience. So you pick your gender, your age range. You're presented with a basic sort of basket of items that you can add to if you want. And then once you've finished packing your shoe boxes online, you check out, you pay your money, and then boom, what happens is we have a whole bunch of volunteers that come into our processing center sort of the first couple of months of the year, and they physically pack the shoe boxes that folks have done online. And the neat thing about this too is we tell people you can also upload a note and a photo for each shoebox you pack. And then when our volunteers physically pack them, they download those notes and photos and they put them in the appropriate shoeboxes.
This actually sounds like a much easier way to even do it in the future when COVID hopefully isn't an issue anymore.
It's definitely my wife and I just packed our shoe boxes this year, and we did it all online because it's just so easy to do.
Absolutely. Are you finding a bigger success rate with that?
We have already blown away the number of shoe boxes that were packed online from all of last year. We're already packed, yeah. And so we're expecting that to just keep going and going and going. And we're thrilled with that because we know that whether or not there's a pandemic, There are children in need around the world. There are children who have never received a gift in their entire lives. There are children who are waiting to go to school, and these things can make all that difference to them. So yeah, it's a great thing, and we're thrilled that folks are doing it that way.
That's great. So National Collection Week for 2020 is this week, right? So viewers have until this coming Sunday, November 22nd, to get their shoebox dropped off, right? So yeah.
That is correct.
Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about that deadline. And that's for the Christmas deadline, but you deliver all year round, don't you?
Yes, yeah, we deliver shoeboxes all year round, and the reason we do that is, number one, it takes time to process all these boxes, to get them through customs, to get them shipped down, to get them set up distribution events in the destination countries. But also, a lot of these shoe boxes are going to countries that are not that do not celebrate Christmas. So whether they get the box in December or August makes no difference to them. A wonderful gift is a wonderful gift no matter when they get it. So that's the key thing for us is bringing that simple joy to children any time of year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're also told to include a $10 donation to cover the cost to get the shoebox to the kids. So is that cash, check, online? How does this work?
Yes.
Anything goes. Okay.
It can be cash, it can be check. We actually encourage people to do it online because that makes it simpler for them and simpler for us to process all these things and make it happen. And I should emphasize that this is a suggested donation. So even if people don't put that $10 in their box or put it online or whatever, that shoebox is still going to get to those children who need that joy and that hope. So it really is just a suggested thing to help us get those boxes down. And for anyone who thinks that's a lot of money, try shipping a shoebox full of stuff across Canada for $10.
Right.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, shipping is very expensive, unfortunately. So it's good to know that it'll still get there for the kids, even if somebody's unable to make that donation.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, we don't want that to stop people from packing shoeboxes for kids.
Yeah. Now, I'm told that there's also a voluntary Bible study course, The Greatest Journey, that's made available for the kids and the families afterwards. Maybe talk about that and what the response has been like.
It's called The Greatest Journey. It's a 12-lesson evangelism and discipleship program that's offered to the children after they receive the shoe boxes. So they're under no obligation to participate in any way, shape, or form. We are thrilled with the number who have taken part. As I say, it's 12 lessons. It helps them learn who Jesus is. And so many children learn about him for the first time. And other ones who are already following Jesus, they learn about how to share their faith with their friends. And I've actually got a great statistic for you here. Let me see if I can find it here. Here it is. We're really praising God that in the last 11 years, he has used The Greatest Journey to bring more than 11 million children to faith in his son. That's an astounding number. And the other cool thing about it is, in many cases, God works through these children to bring their parents and their siblings to faith in Christ as well. So that alone is just powers us forward to make sure we keep Operation Christmas Child going every year.
And I also understand that you have a considerable focus on unreached peoples groups around the world. So what's the impact so far and what are your goals for that?
Yeah. Well, generally, Operation Christmas Child supports the work that Samaritan's Purse, sort of our umbrella organization, is doing. So what happens is Samaritan's Purse uses shoeboxes, uses safe water, literacy programs, agricultural programs, disaster relief, a whole bunch of other things that Samaritan's Purse does to reach these unreached people groups. And that's generally populations that have 3% or less who profess to be Christians. And some of the results with that is, for example, we're partnering with to translate Bible stories and discipleship materials into dozens of languages where God's word is not known. We're also helping to plant churches in countries like Mexico, Moldova, Mongolia, Namibia, Philippines, and Senegal. And so our goal is to share the gospel with 290 unreached people groups in the next 5 years.
And once again, time is running out. National Collection Week for 2020 is this week, and we only have until Sunday. So people in Lethbridge can drop off their boxes at Park Meadows Baptist Church and also at the Mission Thrift Store. So how do viewers in other areas find out where their specific drop-off location is?
The simplest way is to go to SamaritansPurse.ca, and generally that homepage is now sort of all about Operation Christmas Child. Click on any of those links, and that will take you to a choice where you can actually pick where your drop-off locations are, and all you need to do is know your postal code. You put your postal code in the little slot, you click the button, it shows you all the closest drop-off locations, addresses, and operating hours within a 75 or even 200 kilometer radius. So yeah, just know your postal code, go to SamaritansPurse.ca, and it all happens simply from there.
Well, thanks so much, Frank. Frank King, News Media Relations Manager with Samaritan's Purse. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on board, and thank you for your support for what God is doing.
At least 21 people were arrested and many others were injured as left and right-wing activists clashed in Washington, D.C. recently over the results of the U.S. federal election. To discuss this in more detail is U.S. political correspondent Lisa Daftari joining me once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, the violence grew out of a largely peaceful rally when a crowd of about 10,000 supporters of Trump marched saying that the election was stolen from him, and Trump is yet to concede to Joe Biden.
Yes, it's a mess over here. Where to start on this one? You know, we still don't have a conclusive winner. And why do I say that? Well, the media announced that Joe Biden would be the winner based on the projected numbers coming out of the remaining states. The Electoral College has yet to make that statement. And therefore, both Donald Trump and many of his supporters feel that this is still ongoing, that they will contest this. They are running parallel lawsuits, both on behalf of the public and on behalf of the president, to contest these lawsuits to show evidence of voter fraud and cheating. And in the meantime, yes, these were peaceful protesters. If you look at the footage, Hal, a friend of mine tweeted this, and I truly believe that this is a fact. No U.S. president or leader of any world country has ever or will ever have this kind of support. You know, it's amazing. I mean, love him or hate him, you have to acknowledge what a loyal fan base he has. People who love him are willing to come out, are willing to drive their cars with flags, with hats, with t-shirts, bring their children out. And this is really people of all ethnic backgrounds. This was in particular in Washington, and there was violence. The other side not showing the tolerance and unity that their party touts, and waiting on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to make statements urging people to unite. So you know, it's very ugly. You know, Hal, you and I have spent years talking about national security crises, comparing ISIS to Al Qaeda. We were never comparing the left and right in the United States, and here we are. This is our national security crisis right now.
Now, police have actually arrested a suspect in connection with fireworks that went off at a restaurant in Washington, D.C., hitting Trump supporters. Lisa, somebody actually set the fireworks off on a patio.
Yes, this is a targeted attack on Trump supporters. Look, if you look at some of these, I couldn't stomach to look at a lot of this footage that was coming out. It was so just violent, full of hate, to target people sitting in a restaurant because they don't agree with the same politics that you agree with, because they want a different person in the White House than you want. This is not American. This is nothing like what we've seen in the past. You know, it's always been, well, if my candidate is not chosen, then I'll wait 4 years and hopefully my candidate or the candidate of my choice will enter the White House in 4 years. But right now, it's just two Americas. It's really a country divided, and unfortunately, They can't see eye to eye. They have a completely different path and a different vision for the future of this country. And that's why I think that it's so emotional, because people are fighting for the future that they want to see for their children and their families.
You know, what about the expression, we have to agree to disagree, right? That's what more people need to say nowadays. Ivanka Trump slammed the U.S. mainstream media for its apparent double standard when covering violence directed towards conservatives and supporters of her father, U.S. President Donald Trump. In a tweet, Lisa, she said, "It is outright shameful and dangerous."
It is. It's absolutely those two words. And for the media to not be able to put its own politics aside for a minute and say this is wrong, to have headlines that actually depict what's going on, that one side is being targeted and the violence is being used against the other side. This is damaging. And I'll say this, and I've said this before on your show, but I'll say it again. Whatever is happening right now will happen again, and it might not be your side that is winning from it. Meaning, if there's been election fraud, it might happen again against your candidate. So there should be transparency. If there's violence going on, it might be against your side next time. So it behooves us to stop for a moment and say what's wrong is wrong, and to be honest with one another and honest towards one another, for the sake of our country, for the sake of the future of this country. And Ivanka and her family have really withstood so much of that violence has been targeted towards them. They can't eat at a restaurant like normal people can. They get spit at. They get, there's so much hate towards them. And again, their family being there to help and to run, the presidency in a way where they didn't need the money, they didn't need the fame, they didn't need the power. But this is where we are, a divided country.
Yeah, very much a country divided. Leaders of China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and 11 other countries in the region signed a trade agreement over the weekend. Lisa, many feel it's a move to draw the region's economies closer together and sets a new obstacle against U.S. influence in the region.
Absolutely. This is a very, very significant development for the global economy. We're talking about roughly 1/3 of the world's economy, 15 countries that are now signatory to a pact, leaving the West out. Of course, the United States, Canada, being left out of that deal. It's important to look and see how things have shifted during this pandemic, because of this pandemic, and now how China hopes to move on from this, expanding its influence in the region. I know a lot of the neighbors there aren't happy with the way that China is expanding its influence, but you better, if you can't beat them, join them, as the expression goes. And I think that that's what's going on for a lot of the neighbors, watching China's influence grow.
Despite Washington's efforts to restrict China's access, Chinese military researchers are continuing to use U.S. software for things like cutting-edge developments in hypersonic weapons technology. Now, that software is capable of taking out all existing defense systems. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, and the Chinese, though, the thing that they're amazing at is taking advantage and using the opportunity to take advantage of U.S. Intelligence of any sort, whether that be patents, whether that be technology, weaponry, cybersecurity. They learn from the United States, they copy it, and they move forward with it. So it's not surprising to see these headlines that are actually qualifying and quantifying the way that the Chinese are able to still, despite the crackdowns, still take advantage of the U.S. and our intelligence here.
The battle rages on between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Officials in Armenia recently said that they thwarted an assassination attempt on their prime minister. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so a ceasefire, a peace deal. Many ceasefires have failed. We're hoping that this time around this will work. The animosities are very, very, very high. Here in Los Angeles, I'll tell you a local story that pertains to this larger fight between the two sides. There was a Turkish cafe where Armenians walked in and basically trashed the place. It was a hate crime, and then it's being investigated by police as an alleged hate crime right here in Beverly Hills, because again, the tensions, the emotions running so high. Armenians feeling that they have been targeted, that they are being uprooted, that this is yet again another genocide against their people. It's an all too familiar feeling for their people, as it has happened in the past, and they are trying to fight for what they believe is their right. On the other side, you have Azerbaijan that has a lot of global support. They are trying to get rid of the Armenians from a piece of land, and the Armenians must evacuate. And in the meantime, the Armenians reporting in an alleged assassination attempt against their leader. They were able to foil this alleged attack, but again, tensions running very, very high. Even though there's a peace deal, I'm quite skeptical of how long this will last and how significant it will be in the long run.
And Azerbaijan has extended the deadline for Armenia to withdraw from key districts under the Karabakh truce. Where are we at with that?
Yeah, this is a very interesting story. So they're actually having them evacuate, as we've seen, before and in historic times with other nations. But there are stories of the Armenians actually burning their property before they leave. It's like, when kids want to give me that back, and they spit on it before giving it back. And I don't mean to make light of it, but it's, again, tensions running, emotions running so high that they would rather burn their homes, their beloved homes, before giving their property back to Azerbaijan. So extremely, extremely heart-wrenching accounts to follow and watch, and to really see the nitty-gritty from the ground on this story.
A human rights group says more than 1,000 people have been arrested during fresh demonstrations over the disputed presidential election in Belarus. Lisa, the tally came after protesters took to the streets in the capital city of Minsk amid growing anger over the death of an opposition activist.
Yeah, so this keeps going on between the opposition and the government there, using tear gas, trying to peacefully or less violently put an end to these protests that are not going away. It's been weeks upon weeks now. They keep coming out in large numbers, and their president is not willing to back down. He's got support from Russia, he's got support from outside, and he's not willing to back down. And in the meantime, because this violence is growing from the opposition, the things escalate, and now they are, demanding answers from protesters being killed, and more violence being used against protesters than was reported before. So this is going on, and who knows when we'll see an end to this. If he's not stepping down, they will continue to protest.
Now, speaking of protesters, Catholic protesters took to the streets in France recently, holding up signs like "Let us pray" and "We want Mass," demanding authorities relax virus lockdown measures to allow religious services.
Yes, so religious services all around the world have been canceled because of COVID, with many leaders believing that there is, to be more cautious, not to gather in large groups, particularly when they're going to gather weekly or even daily. In some instances, they have asked religious groups not to do that. Now we've seen I should say, a religious awakening in France because of many reasons. One, because of COVID, and they not allowing them to gather, but secondly, because of the attacks by Muslim extremists on churches because of Macron's comment about the Prophet Muhammad and the cartoons that are depicting him. So when there is this kind of targeting, when there is this kind of persecution, the loyalty and the fervor grows more. And I think people are trying to show their support for the church, and they want to go to Mass. They want to gather. They want to be together. And this COVID is just getting worse. We're seeing fresh lockdowns, calls to either have curfews or to go into full quarantine again, all throughout Europe. We might see one again here in Los Angeles again in the coming days.
I know here in Alberta as well, we've seen partial lockdowns once again, but we have to understand too, the more we lock down and shut down these business owners, they may not come back, especially the small to medium business owners, which is the backbone of our economy. Lisa, let's circle back to the U.S. federal election for just a moment here. The Trump administration is claiming fraud, and they say we have lots of proof of fraud. They're going to unleash the Kraken, so to speak, some of the candidates, or some of the spokespeople of the Trump administration. What have you seen? Is there any proof of fraud yet from the election?
There is. It will be presented. It has been presented. They're in the process of presenting it. I have been in touch. I can tell you on background, because most of the detailed information I have is currently off the record. But on background, I can tell you that there is information, there is evidence. There is a very optimistic, for lack of a better word, legal team that is going to work for the president right now. I would just say ignore what you're seeing from the mainstream media here in the United States, because I think that they're very quick to dismiss a lot of what has been done. But the bulk of the evidence has not been shown yet. And again, I want to remind viewers that a lot of these lawyers are extremely brave, extremely courageous, because their lives have been threatened. The group Antifa has gone and actually targeted the specific lawyers, the individuals, their law firms, stood outside their law firms, protested outside their law firms, and they're doing everything they can to silence this movement. Look, again, coming from a nonpartisan point of view, for the sake of the nation, we are asking for transparency. There should be transparency on both sides. And again, this will mean for more fair and legal elections going forward, whether it's in 4 years or 8 years or 12 years. This is what we want for the nation. Let them show the evidence. If there's no evidence, everyone will rest their case and move on from this, but let them show the evidence.
When do you think this will actually wrap up?
Look, inauguration is in January, so I think that it'll probably be right around then that we'll have some sort of answer. Either we'll have President Trump concede and an official statement from the Electoral College that Joe Biden is the winner, or we will see what will happen with these suits.
Remains to be seen what's going to happen here. Political correspondent and our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, thanks for joining me once again from Los Angeles.
My pleasure.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless. Thanks for watching.